rise today in opposition to AB 501, and as one of the members on the committee that heard this bill, I feel compelled to say precisely why I find it objectionable. I think it misdiagnoses the problem it's trying to solve, and so it offers a false solution that will fail to improve the underlying issue and will instead create more problems. The premise of this bill is that free speech, especially for the political right, is being stifled on our public university campuses in our state. As I shared in the hearing, I simply do not agree that the evidence levied to justify this idea proves that this bill is warranted. Instead, what we heard were some anecdotes from conservatives and mixed evidence in a survey showing that some conservative students on some campuses feel that they couldn't express themselves freely in some classes because they feared judgment of their peers, not because of something the universities are doing. We heard of some individuals being hostile towards some conservatives, again, not systemic nor university-wide. The survey that my Republican colleagues used to justify this bill showed that our universities seem to have different cultures. And yes, part of that includes different political cultures. The survey suggests that Madison is more liberal than Parkside, and that some students struggle to express themselves in some classes at Madison. That is an important data point, and it shouldn't be ignored. But this bill is not the answer. Now, don't get me wrong. I agree that a public university system must ensure that campuses are encouraging all faculty, staff, and students to be welcoming so that students can learn to express themselves, to be challenged, and to experience and work through intellectual discomfort. We're in luck. The Board of Regents policy emphasizes exactly that. Many campuses, including UW Superior and UW-Madison, and I'm sure many others, have amazing initiatives aimed at creating more civil dialogue as they try to do what universities always try to do: creatively work to solve problems. I'd love to know from the system campuses, including hearing directly from faculty, staff, and students, about how we can better support those efforts and work with rather than against our universities. But again, the underlying problem here isn't one that can be solved by the punitive and misguided measures in this bill. Instead, it's a widespread cultural problem throughout our country. That's why I'm a no on this bill. Political division, an unwillingness to speak up, fear of censure, or even tolerance of political violence, these are problems in our culture broadly. I will not endorse or support targeting and scapegoating our universities for simply being one part of a broader social reality. People are struggling to know how to talk to each other outside of echo chambers. I could say more about that on the earlier topic, but I won't. We all know that algorithms are making this much worse. We see it every day, and we're often the brunt of it. How many people in this room have received death threats or been harassed? How many people aren't in this room because they're too scared to run for office? But even worse, some people in this room actively promote this kind of political rhetoric that promotes violence and that encourages harassment. This is dangerous to us as elected officials, but it's also dangerous insofar as it is tearing families, communities, and this country apart. Passing a bill that offers a punitive solution to a cultural problem will only force campuses to hire more lawyers. It won't touch the underlying issue, but you know what could help? Our example. As leaders, we should be taking up this issue of political division, and we should become models of respectful political debate. And I don't mean we can't be passionate or call each other out when we feel that someone has harmed a community we represent or our children, or when we have failed to do the work that our constituents sent us here to do. I know that being held accountable doesn't always feel good, but I see it as a form of respect because it shows a commitment to this work, including the reality of what is at stake for our constituents when we fail to deliver for them. And I'm not just talking about the debates we have on this floor or in this committee or in committees. If we really want civil dialogue, we need to start thinking more deeply about how to live up to the ideals of democracy that our founders intended. I mean, we call ourselves an assembly. The idea is that we're supposed to have deliberations that are thoughtful and where we actually listen to each other and take each other seriously and keep an open mind. One example would be talking to trans people, not just about them. Do most of the people in this room really do those things, keep an open mind? We all know how broken the status quo is. We probably know it more than most. But when are we going to have the courage to actually do something about it? To change our minds, to be influenced by arguments and ideas, no matter who shares them, and to reflect that in the way we actually vote, And before anyone tries to fall back on blaming their leadership, we all know how votes work, we know how they were elected, and we could change that if we had courage. Some of you might think that what I'm saying here is naive, and I'm willing to admit that it might be. But as we end near the end of this session in my first term, I figured I should put this in writing and put it in the record now, because assuming my constituents send me back here, and I have the honor to serve them again, if I wait until next session, it might be too late. I might become cynical like so many of my colleagues. So allow yourself to feel optimism for just a moment. Just try it on for a second. Wouldn't it be nice to play a role in helping our state live up to democratic principles? Maybe that's too big of a first step, so let's start smaller. If anyone on the other side of the aisle wants to start an initiative with me where we travel to UW campuses to model civil dialogue, where we have real conversations about substance, not talking points, not social media posts, not pre-screened short questions with time answers, but actual civil dialogue, I'd be all in. We could model what we say we want from universities rather than trying to enforce it with the threat of lawsuits, as this bill does. We don't need to pass this bill. What we need is to use our positions to help improve a broken culture. My view is that accountability always starts at the top, with leadership. And so I have to, for the purposes of accountability, genuinely, not as a partisan jab, implore my Republican colleagues to start holding your party's top leader, our president, accountable for his language and his actions that are tearing us apart. In this bill, you want the UW to protect free speech, which I believe they already do, while ignoring a president who asks why protesters can't just be shot. He harasses and threatens elected officials for using their First Amendment rights. He says that former military and intelligence officials who now serve in Congress should be executed because they dared to use their voices to stand up for the Constitution. This is completely unacceptable. Our president poses the single biggest threat to free speech in this country currently. It is not the UW system. Civil dialogue, honest, thoughtful debate, real conversations across political differences have never been more important. We are in dangerous territory. I know that my plea that we change how we operate is unlikely to have any effect, because the reality is that powerful interests are benefiting from our division and our dysfunction. So long as we are divided in our fighting and believe that labels like conservative or liberal or Republican or Democrat define us, and that defending our team is more important than standing up for the people we represent, we won't have the time or the energy or the focus to ask the right questions, much less to find the right answers or vote in a way that truly represents them. There is no easy bill that we could propose, nothing we could vote on to solve that problem. What it will take is courage to change this place into a truly deliberative body, a truly democratic body, one that is committed to doing the actual work we were sent here to do. A bill that would only be a Band-Aid on a broken culture is not the answer. But to anyone who wants to try to start finding one, my door is always open, and I'd love to talk. And even more importantly, I'd love to listen. The vote, Mr. Speaker, is no.